Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. Hope you guys are fantastic. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to Heart of Christ Ministry. I'm your host, Reverend Shaun Robert Grant. Back in full effect. Hump Day, Wednesday. It is. Took a day off yesterday. And usually, it's really, really good to take a step back and to sort of focus within to see how things are emanating and how things are coming to the forefront. And so it never fails. Whenever I do that within anything that I'm participating in, it always brings me, I want to say, not necessarily full circle, but to even higher levels of consciousness to be able to share and to be able to open up with. And it's just such a beautiful thing. So, just understand how important it is to rest, right? Just understand how important it is to rest, understand how important it is to step back and then just kind of relax into things and let things come to you as opposed to pushing. All right. So before I get into anything, I'm going to start with some prayer. And I also wanted to just say thank you to each and every one of you who've shown your kindness and generosity and support of this ministry. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. I know sometimes, especially during a pandemic, it's not always easy to give, but at the same time, that's what you've done. So thank you for that. Thank you for finding a place in your heart to be able to take that step, because that's huge. And guess what? Today is going to prove how the universe and how reality really is affected by you doing those types of things. But before we get into anything, let's take a moment to just stand in prayer. In prayer, we just want to uplift. I want to uplift you right now. I want to uplift this ministry. I want to uplift everybody connected to you, that this day may be a day filled of joy, a day filled of building a new story. Cannot say that enough. A day of excitement, of happiness, of fulfillment, of the unfolding of your dreams, of anything that is near and dear to your heart, that each moment may be filled with a level of immeasurable divine peace emanating to you, in you, through you, around you, and that you will continue to follow that pattern day in and day out. And so it is. Thank you, dearest God and me, for answering that prayer and lifting everybody up. Let's get rolling today's message. So tune in. Don't leave, because if you leave, you might miss something. I'm telling you. So you gotta be, just take it in. Honestly, at the end of the day, like, it's about taking this in. It's about really, really finding a moment or finding an opportunity to elevate yourself by what's within you, as opposed to thinking that every answer lies outside of us, right? And so that may not make sense yet, but I promise you, after I'm done, maybe even before I'm done, it will begin to make sense to you. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. There's our message. There we go, right here. There we go. How reality really works and becoming aware of your power within it. All right. So I read a lot, and I tend to read books that can help me to dive in the divine aspect of myself more. Right. I don't like just taking any of that face value. Whatever I find myself reading has to go on a deeper soul level. And so I had kind of got into this realm of quantum physics, and not trying to understand it mathematically, but understand it in a way that I could apply it to my life. And it's just absolutely mind blowing. And when you think about all that has happened within science, to really see how this is unfolding and helping us on this day, it just makes you want to go back and read whatever's out there on the topic. One of the first topics that I've had was not topics, books, where it was called Happy Pocket Full of Money by David Jaconda. And he talks a little bit about quantum physics as it relates to money and stuff like that. And so that kind of sparked the idea of wanting to dive more into this as it relates to life. So what that did, that actually helped me begin to understand how reality really works. And this is some exciting stuff, I'm telling you, because what you find from here, this is a paradigm, not just a shifter, but a breaker, right? It takes you out of that old Newtonian level of existence and into the quantum level of existence, which we're going to see right now is something that basically takes the entire platter, puts it in front of you on a plate and says, eat up, right? So with that being said, how reality really works and becoming aware of your power within it. And as always, got some great stuff for you. Number one, okay. So when we think of quantum physics, we're thinking of the energy field that lies below what appears to be reality, right? So you're seeing me on this video, but on the formless level, on the quantum level, so to speak, this all I am is a reflection of your consciousness. I'm a reflection of what is going on inside of you that is reflecting back to you what your heart, your mind, your thoughts are fixated on and which you're having faith with. Okay. So it's interesting how that works, right? But that's exactly what it is. I may look like Reverend Shaun Robert Grant, but I'm actually just an extended version of you as you're watching me, right? So what does that tell me overall? That tells me that, number one, the universe is in a perpetual state of flow, right? Now, to show you that it's different, after I go off this, then you'll probably encounter another version of yourself, right? Whether that be coworkers, whether that be, parents, siblings, people at the store, people over here, like your pets, whatever it is, it's always in a perpetual state of flow. See, at one time, we thought that the universe was fixed. We thought that everything was separate, right? But in actuality, everything is inseparable. Everything moves one. Like that's the whole concept of universe, one song, right? Everything is connected. Nothing can be separate. Nothing can be apart from this rather. So in that understanding, that means that any experience that you've had that has been holding you back, any occurrence, any belief, any thought form that has been having you stuck, it's stuck because you're choosing to allow it to be, you're choosing to be stuck in a sense that you keep replaying that snapshot, right? That snapshot of one itsy bitsy occurrence in the ever-present, eternal, perpetual state of flow that is the universe, right? And this sometimes can be very hard to believe, but I'm telling you, the moment you shift out of that, it changes your entire existence. It changes your world because why? The universe is affected greatly by what you choose to focus your attention on. What you choose to observe determines what shows up in your reality. So I kind of jumped the gun, but I this goes without saying. This needs to be reiterated all the time throughout this message, because if what I'm observing is affecting what is happening in my life, what type of stuff am I going to focus on? I'm going to focus on everything possible that can help me. And if it still doesn't seem right, guess what? I'm going to go deeper into meditation and get to that deeper level of my mind and my spirit and focus on what I desire to have happen in my reality, because none of it is ever fixed, right? This is why things can go wrong so quickly, but they can equally skyrocket and go right in a heartbeat, because the universe is not fixed, right? You're not allotted to. There we go. It's raining, so we got some internet issues. Sometimes it'll stop, but all I was saying was that you're not allotted to having to experience something over and over and over again, unless you are fixated on that story. You're fixated on that snapshot, and you're not allowing the universe to flow. And guess what? You grow, you expand, you prosper automatically, right? There's nothing stopping you from prospering unless you allow something that happened, Lord knows when, right? Because a lot of times it's for us as childhood, and we replay it for 30, 40 years, 20 years for some of you, and it keeps us stuck. So the whole idea is to get you out of being stuck. And the one way you can do that is this. Okay, let me look at this experience, right? What is informing this belief? What is supporting this belief that continually shows up in my life? And once you find out what is supporting that belief, right, you can say, well, guess what? That's not me. That may have been me in that moment, but that's not me. I can move away from that. I can move out of that and be someone totally different. Because here's the thing, and this is the most important thing about this aspect, number one here, is that each and every moment is new. So interesting, something just happened. The system just idled a bit because the internet stalled, right? So all of a sudden it just idles itself so it can refresh and come back to a new moment. That's exactly how life works. Each moment is like the universe hitting the refresh button. And each moment you are brand new. All your cells, like body, everything, all the cells and everything are constantly moving like this. But they're moving so fast that it looks like they're solid. But the thing is, every single thing is brand new in each and every moment. That's how intelligent this universe is that we live in. And it's always in a state of flow, right? And guess what? The flow, if they're flowing like this, when you begin to observe them and you observe them in a different way, they start doing that, right? So you take your mind off of it, and then they hear, right? They're doing that again. But then when you're on it, okay, so it's your focus, it's your observation, it's your attention that affects the way that reality unfolds, because that is within the state, the universe, which is in a state of perpetual flow. Guys, read into this stuff. Look at this again. Ask for inner guidance. Like, really get this down, because guess what? You get it down, you're no longer a victim to circumstances. Excuse me. You're no longer focused on people, events, or things outside of you trying to figure out how you can change your life. Because now, you know how I said in the beginning, you get the power back, right? That's what counts. You get the power back, right? So we've kind of discussed this next one here a bit, but I want to give that to you. And I want to give it to you again, because the universe is influenced by the slightest observation. And so this one here is so very important to give an example of, right? And so quantum physics has all types of examples, but excuse me. So I feel like the best example is an example of using water, is with Masaru Emoto did. when he did those basically experiments with water to see how water would respond to certain things. So one thing that we can kind of see, how do I put this? So basically, let me explain to you what he did, and then I'll explain to you how this works. All right. I just got my example came to me. But anyway, so Dr. Emoto took glasses of water, pails of water, and he put words that carried certain vibrations, because guess what? Words carry vibrations, right? I have a small notebook I carry around in my pocket that is full of inspiring words. Why? Because that carries energy, and that energy is on me at all times, right? And it speaks of peace, it speaks of love, it speaks of prosperity, it speaks of all these wonderful things, because you got to know that this carries a current of it. And that is not a direct observation, but an indirect observation that influences the universe. So Emoto took these labels and placed it on these glasses and these pails of water. And what wound up happening is one of the most extraordinary things to show us that the universe is not fixed. And there's even more evidence, right? There's even more evidence that it began to continually develop and formulate itself into divine structures and patterns and stuff the longer it stayed on. So it initially created like this beautiful pattern, and then he kept it on longer, and it created an even more intricate pattern of beauty. And it continued to do that the more he put words like thank you and love and peace and joy, right? So then he went to the other side of the spectrum, and he decided to put like words of a lower vibration on the water. And all I can tell you, it looked like patterns of chaos. You can look this up. You can Google this Masaru Emoto water experiment. And there's a book on it as well. I think I actually have that book. But it shows you what happens when an observation is made, or when an energy is introduced to something that is purely neutral. Remember, the waves of energy do that. And then when they observe, they act out, right? And waves of energy is just everything around us, right? That's our bank accounts, that's our homes, that's our spouses, that's our pets, that's our family. Like, so my example was in understanding if that could happen to water, you got to know human beings are 60 to 70% water. But even then, we're all energy. So when you observe, right, on energy, like your energy observing me affects me as to how I appear to you. And you may say, well, I think he's a really good guy, he's inspiring people, or he's a pompous idiot. You know, it just depends on what type of observation you are making, right? And it works like that with every single entity in the universe. It's influenced by the slightest observation. You ever notice you can say something about somebody and really feel it strongly without them hearing, and they begin to act in accordance to that behavior, especially if it's someone who is spiritually inclined and empathic and can kind of pick up on energy. You can send them these vibes, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I didn't even tell you that. But then now you're acting like this. That's because the energy is influenced. And once it's influenced, the wave collapses into an experience, into a circumstance, right? So when you know this, right, this tells you, number two tells you, you have all the power, right? You have all the power. Imagine if you could look at any situation and see abundance. Imagine if you can look at any situation and see love, right? Just imagine that. Your simple observation affects the outcome for you, because it's all a bit of a cosmic dance that's happening that everybody's participating in, but your observation affects you, right? I'm going to tell you something very, very, very interesting and important, in a lesson that I learned with this, even I want to say last year. So was it last year or a couple years? Matter of fact, no, it was the election. So it's a few years ago. And what I saw was an enormous hate for Donald Trump, just enormous, right? And something happens to you on the inside, like, and it's not a good thing. It's kind of like with that water, when you're directing that much lower vibrational energy towards something. And I hope that this encourages you to kind of, like, if you're doing that, to just ease up from it, right? Because it's only hurting us in the process, because everything is just an extension of us. But anyway, I can remember there was this point where you just saw so much hate. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, okay, I need to take a step back, because I have come to this earth to express love in all forms, unconditionally, no matter what or who anybody or anything does. It's up to me to see love in everything, even in the worst types of situation. I caught hell for doing that, because I just choose to make that decision. And guess what? Because I choose to see love, I get nothing but love. My reality is influenced greatly by love, because all I'm observing is love. And guess what? When I observe something different, I get that, So it's telling me right off the bat, the universe is being influenced by the slightest observation. So for me, I had to really, and then when you start having like a number of people sort of express those same type of feelings, it becomes toxic beyond belief. And you begin to feel that, because guess what? We're all inseparable. We're all one being. We're one song. We're one verse, right? So we're all feeling that. And so sometimes on social media, there's an influx of negativity, you begin to observe that negativity, and then you begin to feel it. And it's just like a chain reaction. And the universe it doesn't work. It doesn't take time for a lot of stuff to happen on the quantum level. This stuff is just like faster than even that. It just happens instantly, right? That's the influence. That's the influence that comes from you. What are you observing, right? What are you choosing to see? What are you choosing to give your attention to in your life? Because that's going to decide what shows up in your reality. All right. And so we're moving to number 3, your consciousness. So if you don't know, consciousness is basically just thought, feelings, and actions. Influences your reality, right? So what does that mean? Easy enough. Let's try to simplify this as much as we can for you. So you find yourself in a place where, let's take it all the way back to birth. All right. So you're born, you come into this world as pure infinite potential, right? But then as you grow up, you adopt the thoughts, the feelings, the actions of the people around you, albeit family, teachers, guardians, whatever it is. Their consciousness becomes your consciousness for the first, let's say, 6-7 years of your life. All right. And so in that, you begin to realize, depending on how long you hold tight to that consciousness, that influences your reality, right? That influences your reality. And it's one of those things. It's another thing. I mean, when it comes to the divine, sometimes stuff is so easy, so simple rather, that it kind of flies over your head when you think of like the simplicity of it. But this is what unfolds. And normally what happens is there's an experience that's so powerful that it pierces beneath the surface and creates an impact on a subconscious level. And then what happens? You play it over and over and over and over again, and it repeats. And it feels like you're living in Groundhog Day because the same experience is coming up. Why? Because you're identifying with that same experience. And I'll give you a personal story of mine that deals with something I dealt with. So, and I can be upfront about this. I don't have any hard feelings about it whatsoever anymore. It was hard to take in at one time, but I can remember being a young child and my brother coming along. And I can remember that my grandmother saved money for him. Like she created a jar full of dimes and stuff like that, but didn't do it for me. Right. And so in my young mind, I couldn't have been, I want to say maybe 6, something like that. But the way I interpreted that experience is unworthiness, not enoughness, like feeling second fiddle, right? And so it didn't stop there. There was another instance that created a really deep crevice within my consciousness. And this is financially related and just worthiness and other stuff. Why I struggled as a young child and even into like adulthood. I would vacuum, and normally she would pay me if I cleaned up or whatever. And sometimes I would clean up and I wouldn't get paid. Right. So then it put into my consciousness, I can work really hard, but not be paid the way I should for it. And that influenced me pretty much a large part of my life. And it was just those simple acts, those simple occurrences that made an indelible impression that I continued to allow to be my barometer of where my consciousness was going to be. So guess what? After all that stuff happens, every time something with money came up from that point, I would go back to that experience. Right. And I mean, it was tragic, because I think about all the times I struggled, but then I realize now that it was for my highest good to be involved in that. But then you realize that it was all about how I interpreted the situation, and I look back on it and so many things could have happened. You just don't know because you only see it from one side. But that simple occurrence basically put me into this position of thinking that I was unworthy, thinking that I wasn't enough, thinking that I had to work hard for nothing. Right. And until I was able to confront that and realize that, as somebody who was like 5 or 6, that made sense. As a man who's soon to be, 30 something, it's kind of foolish. Right. It had absolutely nothing to do with that because I understand the love that she had, and she probably was unaware because she was really old at that time. And so, it's just interesting how that can influence our reality, but it does. And then when you tie yourself into it, it continually influences our reality. So when we know that, all we got to do is dive into those beliefs and find out what is supporting them. Find out what is moving us into this place of thinking this is right. And when you confront it, you blow it up and it's no more. And then guess what? There's no moral story. Been saying that so long for the last few days. There's no moral story. There's no more anything that stops you from being that infinite potential, perpetual state of flow that can bring about anything in your life. Right. anything you desire. And it's all thought, feeling, and action that's going to influence it. It's all about where you're placing your attention, right? I'm telling you, it's all around us, guys. It's all around us. People get afraid of the coronavirus because they spend so much time watching the news, reading the news, and it influences their reality. That observation all of a sudden is embedded within themselves, and then it creates fear. It's that simple. It's that simple. So it's like, what are you putting your focus on? Right? What are you placing your focus on? Like if you're in a relationship, are you focusing on all the things your partner doesn't do correctly? Or are you focusing on the love that they give you, the way that they're there for you, the way that they communicate with you, right? Think about that, because what you focus on tells you what type of beliefs you're holding in. And then if you know, like, yeah, this ain't sitting right with me, I got to fix it, go deeper, fix it, and then come out of that with greater beliefs, greater understandings of who you are right now. Because guess what? You're going to change even more. We're forever changing, because that's the state of the universe. It always changes, right? It may not look like it on the outside, but we're forever changing. So never stick to just one belief of who you are. Always be open to something that's greater, because guess what? Naturally, because it's all love, the universe expands, and the universe is ever unfolding in growth. And it's doing that within us unless we stop it by hooking ourselves on to certain thoughts and feelings, sometimes that have been in the past for years at a time. It's time to let all of that go, right? But that's a whole nother message as far as letting that go. And so came up on the scripture and I wanted to share it with you. And so this is Matthew 13:12, New International Version. Sort of relates a lot to what we've been saying today. And it's like, to those who listen to my teaching, more understanding will be given and they will have an abundance of knowledge. And it basically also says, to him that have, more shall be given. Same with her. To her that have, more shall be given. And what does that mean? That means when you develop the right type of consciousness, the right type of thoughts, feelings, actions, guess what? You're going to get more of that. And if that's in an abundant nature, guess what? You'll have more and more. This is what happens. I saw his post yesterday and people were arguing, as they do, about why is it a CEO can put himself in a position to where he does something and then all of a sudden his penalty for it is to resign in a big old financial golden package. Well, because he has the consciousness that he's always going to have. And to him that have, more shall be given. It's the law, right? It has nothing to do with what kind of person he is. It's the law. And this is that scripture in a nutshell. It's the New International Version changes it up a bit, but when you look at the King James Version and some of the other versions, it shows you that you will get what you already have. So what does that tell me? Honestly, that tells me, I better work on my consciousness, right? Because if I'm broke, I don't want to have more being broke, right? I want to be prosperous. If I'm like single, how do I get out of being single? Be more loving, right? Same with health, like not being more unhealthy, but understanding what health is. And so you get that by adopting a consciousness. And I prefer the God consciousness, because that consciousness is when everything is full, everything is present, nothing is missing, nothing is lacking, everything is in full abundance. Think about that. That's a definitely good consciousness to adopt. And so with that being said, guys, that wraps up today's message. So thank you so much for joining me here. Ultimately, it's what you do with this stuff that makes the difference, right? It's what you do that makes the difference, because I'm telling you, it will change your life if you're willing to implement it into everything that you're doing, right? And it doesn't take much work. It just takes focus. But if you're willing to implement it into what you are doing, I promise you it will make a humongous difference. And I know like some of these videos are like 34, 40 minutes long. Who cares? Right? Think if you committed to 35 minutes, let's say, of watching this video and it changed 35 years of your life, wouldn't it be worth it? I used to get into that space where I was like, oh, it's too long. I don't want to watch it. But I'm like, you know what? F this. No, this 30 minutes could change the next 30 years, right? This 15 minutes could change the next 50 years. You never know until you sit down with it. And for me, it was about taking out notepad, writing down notes, really getting into a space of like, okay, how does this relate to me? Like use the information. Don't just sit there and listen to it and be like, oh, that's right. That's right. Like use it and use it to empower your life. Use it to transform the places where you've been stuck, because that right there is the only reason that I'm doing this show. You can use it and make it a part of your life. Right. So if you have any questions, write to us at ShaunG04@gmail.com for prayer. Any questions you might have. If you're on my Facebook, you can inbox me. YouTube, you can leave a message. But yeah, let's correspond. Let's communicate. Let's dive into this and get you rolling along in a space that enables you to be your best. Because why be here if you're not expecting to be your best, right? Why live this life if you're not expecting to be your best? That's all I'm saying, right? So write to us, ShaunG04@gmail.com, and sowing a seed, ladies and gentlemen, expanding this ministry, offering your resources from a level of love, a place of joy, a place of excitement and generosity. And so, you know, how we talked about earlier, how the slightest observation influences the universe. Well, guess what? Actions are even greater, right? Your actions are choices and decisions you settle upon that tell the universe where you're coming from. And when they come from a place of love, guess what? You're going to get that back, right? So understand that you're sowing into this ministry is not an empty gift. It is a seed that's going to grow within this ministry. It's going to grow within your life, and it's going to amplify everything you do. And it's going to bring a multiplication of that seed back to you, right? And allows you to give even more, not to this ministry, but to every cause. One of the greatest things in life is giving. Again, I just, for me, it's one of those things that I must do if I'm able to feel connected to who I truly am, because there's too many people who don't give in the world, right? So let's change that up, and let's really, not just money, but every area, be a giver. You know, be someone who really takes it up a notch and shares their wealth, shares their abundance, shares their truth, shares their love, right? It makes all the difference. So if you feel this content has benefited you, you feel the content in the past has benefited you, and you're ready to sow a seed today or donate, if you will, guys, feel free to do so. VENMO, Heart of Christ Ministry, PayPal, ShaunG04@gmail.com, Apple Pay, we will set that up. I think I have Zelle as well too. So in the event that you feel up to it, you know, let that generosity overtake you and sow that seed. And so right now, what I'm going to do is pray for you and pray over your seed as well. And then we're going to wrap this up, guys. Okay. Dear God in me, thank you that I was able to have the energy, able to have the joy and the excitement to come to this moment in time today and deliver a message that I know without a doubt will help change lives. I uplift these people, whether they're watching it right now, whether they're watching it in the future, that it may bring them a level of transformation that helps them to understand that you have put them on this world, put them in this world and in this life to be their absolute best, to not be taken down or be victims of old stale beliefs, but to rise up into beliefs of truth, of love, of joy, of happiness, of divine order and perfect divine right action. I ask that the seed that they sow be multiplied in ways unimaginable that we can't even begin to comprehend at this moment. I ask that you continually spark the generosity and kindness within their hearts, not just towards this ministry, but towards every area of their lives. And you help them to live in pure happiness, pure joy, the entire existence, the entire time they are walking this earth, at every fresh, perpetual moment that the universe allows. And so it is. Thank you so much, God and me. Amen and amen. All righty, guys. That wraps up today's message. 40 minutes, 30 seconds. Listen to the whole thing. I'm telling you, if you do, you will get something out of it. You will transform your life, because that's what it comes down to. Why even tune in if you're not gonna use it, right? And I know that kind of sounds like I'm putting demands on you, but who doesn't want to live their best? Honestly, I can't think of anybody that doesn't want to live their best. I want to live my best. So it's like, what are you gonna do about it, right? So with that being said, guys, thank you as always for your support, for your love, for your grace, for your kindness, your generosity. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk soon. What an amazing message. I love it. Take care. Bye-bye.